Hi everyone, it's Stephanie, and I wanted to just take a few minutes to talk to you all about a breast MRI. If you've never had one done before, I obviously had never had one done before, hadn't had a need to have one done, and didn't really know what to expect going into it. And so I thought I'd just put a few words together about kind of what my experience was. I understand that everybody's experience is going to be a little bit different, and but this was just my experience, so maybe it will kind of help you be prepared. I have mentioned several times kind of over the course of my doing videos that the deal that my husband made me make the day of my diagnosis was that I wouldn't Google anything. So that included that I did not Google a breast MRI. We have kind of since come to the realization that some things need to be Googled. And so he Googles them and then tells me the information that I need to know. So maybe your husband or another loved one is the one that's going to watch this for you to kind of help you prepare for a breast MRI. In my mind, excuse me, an MRI was laying on the machine, kind of what you see in ER or Grey's Anatomy. You're laying in the machine, they kind of zoom you back, you lay there for however long they tell you, and people get really claustrophobic. And then, it's kind of done. And the worst part of it is claustrophobia. Well, I don't really consider myself to be a claustrophobic person, so that part of it wasn't, I just didn't think I was going to have any type of reaction or anxiety about that. And I told someone, I said, this is a horrible time to say it, but I spent a whole lot of time in a tanning bed in the 90s. Early 2000s, which of course that thing, it's like a capsule, it closes down. And to me, it was really relaxing. So I kind of played a mind game with myself of, I know that I can do that. And so I just really didn't have any anxiety about it. So I had, Don, my husband, was out of town that week. He had a work trip that was already scheduled. And so that was really fine for him to go, and I could do this MRI. I had no less than 20 friends that said, I will go with you. Are you sure, that you've got this? And I kept telling all of them, no, I can go by myself. I can go by myself. And I did go by myself, even though I had all the offers. And looking back on the experience, they couldn't have come back with me anyway. So I really don't know what good having a friend there would have done, other than, you just have somebody to sit in the lobby. But in my mind, I would have had like Dawn or my mom or somebody come and sit in the lobby, but I knew that I was going to be there for a long time, and asking a friend to go and sit in the lobby for like 4 hours at the hospital was not, I just couldn't bring myself to do that to my friends, especially when I know that I'm really going to need them later on. So I had my MRI done at a hospital. I went to the hospital that morning, checked in. I had to make a payment, obviously, that morning. And then I went, and there were all kinds of papers that I had to fill out. And a lot of them were papers that I had done before. Medical history, if you've had any prior testing or surgeries, reactions, that type of thing. So they had me do that all on site that day. Filled all of those out, and then was called back and went into like a separate waiting room. And so that's where, if somebody had gone with me, that I would have, they would have been left. So what I didn't know is that, you get to that room, you put on a gown, like I was totally prepared for all of that. I didn't know when I had this MRI if I could eat or not. And so I had not eaten breakfast that morning because it didn't dawn on me to ask whether or not I could eat until about 10 o'clock the night before. So I decided that I just wasn't going to eat because I didn't want to have to reschedule it. And so come to find out, so I go back into the kind of first phase where I'm getting the gown, and I asked the nurse, I said, I didn't know if I could eat, so I didn't eat. And she said, well, you could probably have a little something. She said, but I wouldn't have eaten anything big. Do you have anything? Well, my sweet little friend, Lauren, that is our carpool buddy and dance buddy, had made me brownies the day before, and I had one of those brownies in my purse, and I had some water. So I ate about half of that brownie. Now this brownie is like little bitty, like smaller than a cookie, smaller, and not like a normal brownie, like square size. Like it's a little bigger than a $1/2. And I had half of that, and a couple sips of water. So then I come out of that room, and so I eat that like as I'm getting into the gown. So I go back out to that little waiting area that just has like a small amount of chairs and TV. And I'm sitting there, and the lady says, Gabriel is going to come and get you, and he'll get your IV started. Didn't know I was going to have an IV. And that, to me, is really traumatic. I had not had an IV since my daughter was born, and she's 15. And so I'm terrified of needles, which is going to make this a really long journey for me. Terrified of needles, extremely terrified of an IV. And so there I was, like, I'm sure my blood pressure went absolutely through the roof. And so I'm having to talk to myself like, you could do this, you've got to have this done. If you can't get this IV, you're just gonna have to come back and do it again anyway. Just, words of affirmation all the way through to myself. So Gabriel comes to get me, and I don't know how I remember his name, but I do. So Gabriel comes to get me, and I told him, I said, I am terrified of this. I'm gonna pass out. I know this about myself, so I am just warning you that this is what's gonna happen. And so I said, I hope you're really good. And so he's like, oh, I'm fine. Do you want to talk? Do you want me to tell you what I'm doing? And I said, we can just talk. So I'm, looking the other way, and he's trying to do this IV. He gets it in like 2 shots, and then I'm going out. Like the whole room is spinning. I'm going down. And so, and I'm in this little recliner type thing. And so, so he's trying to kind of talk me through it. And so I never went out, although I went so far like down, and my speech was slurry, that he actually, I saw the nurse that actually ended up doing my MRI walked by and saw what was happening as she came in, and like grabbed my hand and tried to get me, talking and all that again. But he had actually gone to the computer to log that I passed out, like I was that far gone. So, so then at that point, they brought me like a little, kind of a little crunchy granola bar. I had a couple of bites of that, but they kept saying like, you don't want to have a whole lot on your stomach. So I just ate enough to kind of get my sugar level back up, a couple more sips of water. And they kind of waited until I got, kind of back to normal before they went back for the MRI. One thing that as I've gone through, like having to have the shots and the IVs and all of that kind of thing, that has helped me, and I know this may seem bizarre, but if you are somebody that tends to pass out a lot or get really lightheaded, is my friend Pretty always has this hand sanitizer that's eucalyptus. It's called the stress-free or stress relieving or something from Bath and Body Works. And they make the little hand sanitizer ones. And I put that, I don't know why I thought to do that. I put it on my hands, and then when I started to pass out, like I put my hand up, like so that I could smell it, hoping that it would be like smelling salts. And I honestly think that's the only reason I didn't go all the way down, is because that I was like breathing that in, and it was kind of helping me to come back. So anyway, that's a trick of the trade that I have used every time since then. So back to the MRI. So she walks me back, the nurse, who is an absolute angel, so nice, so sweet, so concerned. She walks me back. And so for a breast MRI, it's not like you see on Grey's Anatomy. You're not laying on your back, because I'm thinking to myself, if I lay on my back, I can go to sleep. And my oncologist had given me sleeping pills. And so she told me to take one before my MRI. Well, that's all great, but I'm just driving myself. So I didn't want to take the sleeping pill, because then I had to drive home. So, but having had it, I can see why she said that. So if somebody takes you and your oncologist has given you sleeping pills, not a bad idea. So anyway, I have this idea where I'm like, I would be on my back. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. Now I'm extremely stressed out because I've had to go through this whole IV. And it's the IV is so that they can push through contrast. And so my MRI started out without contrast, and then they did contrast like 3/4 of the way through. So the way that they have to do it is for breast MRIs, you're not on your back, you're actually on your stomach. And that's why they were saying that you don't want a lot on your stomach. So there is a bed, kind of a half bed, that comes up to about like if you're standing up, if you're backing up, it comes to like right here, like just a couple of inches below the bottom of like where your bra would be normally. And so from there on, it's like normal bed. Then there is this bar. It's kind of a flat, probably a couple inches, maybe like that, couple inches bar that comes like between your boobs. So the bed thing, say it comes to here. Then there's this bar thing that comes between your boobs. And then there is the head thing, because you're laying on your stomach, is exactly like if you're getting a massage. Like your head thing goes in that. So basically the weight of your body is on your forehead, because you're in this, laying on the head thing. The bar that's running between your boobs, and then like the top of your stomach right here. So it's not the most comfortable. Then each boob is hanging, and they bring in these plastic things that like come and like do this. So you've got this bar right here. This is this. You're laying down, so each boob is, for like lack of a better word, like hanging right there. So, so that's the uncomfortable part. It's not like super uncomfortable. It's just that you have to lay there for so long. So, and then you're not supposed to move in an MRI, because remember, they have to start over again. And then your arms are up like Superman. So you're like laying and your arms are up here. So, so you're trying not to move, but when you're laying on your stomach and you're trying to breathe, your body like rises like this. Well, every time you rise, your boobs rise, because they're just in these little pocket things, and they're rising too. So you're trying to like get your breathing so shallow that your body doesn't move, which after a certain amount of time, it's just that is difficult, because it really has to be a mind game. So they put earplugs in my ears, but then they put headphones over it. And she let me pick whatever kind of music, and it ended up being spa music. By that point, I was so stressed out, I was like, I don't care what it is. So it was spa music, but you can't really hear it because you have earplugs in as well, because the machine is so freaking loud. And it's like kind of jackhammerish, but not jackhammerish, but it's kind of that kind of sensation, or not sensation, but that kind of sound. But it was very rhythmic. So it seemed like, so I had a 50-minute MRI, and I think it was 40 minutes was without contrast, and that's what we started with. And so it would go for however long, and then it would take like a 40-second break, and then it would start again with the imaging. So it's that like jackhammer sound, and then you would have this like 40-second break. So in those little 40-second breaks is when you really like get your deep breath. Like you can move, and you know that it's the break because the sound stops. And so that's when I'd try to get in as deep a breath as I could. And then as it's going, like I'm trying to hold my breath or breathe really shallow. And after a while, it just starts kind of playing a mind game on you. And so I just started in my head, like saying things in the rhythm of the machine. So like it was, if you're a musician, it was like going in eighth notes. It was like bup, 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 bup. And I just started saying like my kids' names in that rhythm. Just anything that you could say like in that rhythm. I wasn't saying it, but I was saying it in my head. And it really was, it was harder than I thought it was going to be. I really thought like I can just breeze through that. It almost brings tears to my eyes thinking about it, but it was tough. It was tough. And so you just need to kind of be mentally prepared for that. So in your hands, you have this ball. I had this ball, and I guess it has a sensor or something in it. And so the nurse, like I said, she was a complete angel. She said, if something happens, like if you need to stop, squeeze this ball. And so I was trying to make really sure not to squeeze the ball, because I knew that I had to have this imaging done. I had to have it done. And so in my mind, I was just thinking, like, every time that the machine ran, I was one step closer to being done. And I kept thinking, like, I can do anything for 50 minutes. Like, it's not even an hour. I could do anything for 50 minutes. And every time the machine stops, you're one step closer to being done. So when they completed the part that was not contrast, before they started the contrast part, they the nurse came in, and she was like, okay, you're almost finished. All we have to do is this one last test. But when the contrast was running through, it was for 10 minutes. The imaging lasts the entire time. So it wasn't going to have the breaks. And so she made sure to come back and tell me that. And so I said, okay. And so then she went back out of the room, and she's in a room that has, it's connected, and it has a window. So it's like she can see in. It has a huge window, and then all the machinery is behind it on her end. And so they started, so the music started, and she said, it's going to start. And I asked her when she came in, I said, is this going to burn? Because in my mind, I was thinking, when the contrast starts coming through the IV, if it burns, I'm going to flinch. And I knew that we would have to take those images again. And I didn't want to do that. And so I was kind of just trying to prepare myself. And she said, no, and the IV is in my elbow. I got a sticker on my shirt. It's in my elbow. It's not up here. It's in my arm right here. So she said, no, it's not going to burn. She said, but you might, you might feel it. She said, but if anything, it's just going to be really warm. She said, you might smell something salty. You might taste something salty, but it definitely doesn't burn. So I said, okay. So she goes out, the machine starts. It started for a few seconds, and then I can feel the contrast going into my arm. And it's just warm. It's not even like so warm I wouldn't call it hot. I tasted something salty, but it just wasn't, that wasn't bad at all. But definitely no pain, no burning. In fact, the warm was nice. Like they had heated blankets over my legs, and when she would come in, the nurse would come in, like she would rearrange them, make sure that I was really comfortable. So we're probably 4 minutes into the contrast, and I'm doing the same thing, because when the machine's running, it's rhythmic. And at that point, I was probably praying, because I was so ready to be done. And then all of a sudden, I got really nauseous. And I'm really saying to myself, like I can't get sick. I can't get sick. But I was so nauseous. And so it was going on for several minutes. I had not opened my eyes the whole time that my head was in that thing. So I wasn't sure what was underneath me. And so finally I opened my eyes at one point, because I thought, I'm going to throw up. And I looked, and it's, like just a piece of, not machine, but just kind of like a piece of metal that's underneath. Because I'm thinking, if I throw up on this machine, I'm probably going to have to buy it. And I can't be buying an MRI machine. And so finally, like I can feel it. It's coming up in my throat. And I just remember thinking, I'm going to have to do this all over again. And I was really trying to mind over matter, like, I can't go through this again. But I just couldn't. So I'm trying to, just trying to keep it together. And I thought, okay, I can't take it anymore. I'm going to throw up. And so I squeezed the ball that was in my hand to tell her to stop the machine. And it didn't stop. And so at that point, I'm starting to panic a little bit, but I'm not moving because I'm trying to get in all the images I can, but I'm really starting to panic. And so I squeezed the ball again, and the machine didn't stop. And so then I just squeezed it and held it. I thought, okay, maybe it's not registering because I'm like squeezing it, open my hand, waiting, squeezing it, open my hand. And so I just squeezed it and held it as tight as I could. And the next thing I knew, because my eyes are closed, obviously, the next thing I know, the lady, the nurse, she's so sweet, was in front of me, but she was holding my hands. And she said, "You've got 4 minutes left." She said, "Are you nauseous? If you're nauseous, squeeze my hand." And so I squeezed her hand. And she was like, "You can do this. You can do this. You've got this." She was like, "If you have to throw up, just throw up." She goes, "Just let it, just go." And so she was not going to stop that machine because she knew how much and how close I was to the finish line. And as soon as she grabbed my hands and started talking to me, it completely went away. Wasn't nauseous anymore. And so I've told people, that's why I'd say like she was just like an angel. Like as soon as she touched my hands and started talking to me, it completely went away. And before I knew it, we were done. So she was just kind of talking me through the whole thing, and I ended up getting it done. I mean, she was so tiny, so little. I just wanted to like pick her up and run her around the room when it was done. Because I was so thankful for just her sweet spirit of just getting me through it. She's definitely in the right career of, nobody's getting an MRI that's healthy. Everybody that comes through that MRI space, it has something that is wrong, something that is hurting. And so having somebody like her work in that space and back in that building every day with people that are coming through for those tests, she's definitely in the right career. So once the machine stopped, I was able to get up. She actually even, I sat on the edge of the bed. She just kind of let me sit up for a second and kind of get my wits back about me. And she took my IV out immediately. I didn't have to go back to the waiting room or anything like that. She did it herself and wrapped my arm. And then I walked back and got dressed and left and went and got something for lunch and went back to work. I was probably there, probably total about 4 hours, maybe 3.5, 4 hours, I think. So it was a good half a day. But once, even with, me having the contrast, the side effect to the contrast, once I, was able to eat, I was perfectly capable of driving myself. I even went to work for the rest of the day. I didn't have any problems after that. Just the nauseousness when the contrast went through. So that was my experience. I was able to get through the entire thing and my images were clear. I didn't get called back. But you can do it. You can do it for sure. Anybody can do it, but you just need to kind of be prepared that there is an element of a mind game there, and just kind of get yourself ready for what you're going into. But you can do it.